Jonathan Gullis, Conservative MP, is fast becoming one of the Mr. Nasties of the current Parliament. And he's quite extraordinary. He talks about the Twitterati, the woke people, the lefty lawyers, and so on. And he claims in an interview that Gary Lineker talked about the northern voters being racist, bigots, and Nazis. Well, at no point in Gary Lineker's tweets did he say anything quite like that. He did talk about the language being the language of 1930s Germany. I think he's wrong. I think it was the language of the 1930s. It's a language that Britain shared with Germany. But what Jonathan Gullis does is to champion a drive in certain areas of the Conservative Party towards stigmatizing any recognition of the humanity of the vulnerable. And that is very much the language of not 1930s Germany, but even 1940s Germany. To remove the humanity of a group. That is most worrying. That is not something I think that Suella Braverman's bill does yet, but it is definitely the language that Jonathan Gullis is invoking. It's outrageous, and it's dangerously provocative. I think he's making a mockery of the bedrock of our modern civilized society. The modern civilized society is based on a recognition of common humanity. And he is mocking those of us who recognize that as naive or delusional, or or he's simply producing some sort of philosophical fallacy, saying, well, then you go and house these people. As a matter of fact, over the years, I've taken quite a lot of refugees and migrants into my house, and I've given people work in the past. I'm rather pleased about that, because in the early 2000s, partly because I'd given work to migrants, when the Greek government encouraged paramilitaries to come to my house to shoot me, it was migrants that they used, Kurdish migrants. So I was able to open the door and say, well, come on in, put your guns in one corner. Would you like tea, milk? And because I'd actually employed one of them, I avoided getting shot. I avoided being intimidated. I think I think it's right. I think it's right that polling is showing that there's a strong likelihood that in the next election the Conservatives will lose the seats that they won in the Red Wall seats that they won in the 2019 election. I don't think it'll be quite as appalling and annihilatic as some people are suggesting. I think the Conservatives will win back quite a lot of support, but not this way. Not this way. If they continue down this route of screaming invasion, they will lose the core vote of the Conservative Party. And should they do that, it's possible that the Liberal Party will have a revival, or people will just stay at home. Because who else are they going to vote for? The people like Jonathan Gullis are putting forward a fantasy which goes back all the way to Enoch Powell. It's why Enoch Powell was forced out of the Conservative Party. He used the expression, I think he literally used the expression, the ordinary Englishman. What he meant was the bigot. What he meant was the delusional individual who was rehearsing fantasy, conspiracy ideas that we see all over the internet today. The working class bloke who rejects the foreigner, Johnny Foreigner. Or is it Johnny English who rejects? It's Johnny English who rejects whatever the foreigner is called, and who launches an attack on all that is fair. That goes back to Enoch Powell. That was rejected. The rivers of blood is something that all parties rejected. And, except possibly in Northern Ireland where they embraced Enoch Powell. But, you know, I don't think everybody who voted for Brexit was a racist. But I think people who did vote for Brexit, many of them are recognising that they are now poorer. They voted to be poorer. They didn't vote to be morally egregious. They didn't vote to be morally questionable. They didn't vote to be morally superior. Or indeed to support an impractical law, because that is what Suella Braverman's law is. I think there are plenty of people on both the left and the right hand of the Conservative Party who are uncomfortable about the illegal immigration bill for very good reasons, and I think the biggest reason is that it is impractical. It's knee-jerk virtue signalling, not very much virtue, but it's knee-jerk signalling. It's not going to have an impact. And meanwhile, we notice that the Chancellor is encouraging people to come, foreigners to come to this country to work, particularly in the building trade. Well, why not many of those people who have already come here? Why not those people who are stuck in a limbo in a hotel? Why can't they work and contribute tax and demonstrate their commitment to our society? I don't understand why this isn't being done. Other countries have done it. Other countries allow people who are applying for asylum to work in their country. For some reason, we don't. It makes no sense. We need to change the way we operate, rather than playing with delusional, deterrent politics which do not work. And certainly we should stand up against the bullies who promote evil rhetoric across the internet, across the channels, and who put words which were never said into the mouths of individuals. So Jonathan Gullis needs to seriously consider what he is promoting, because he's promoting lies.